And welcome to Building Talk, the podcast for the resident manager, property manager, and all building service professionals.
Nice. You did that very nice.
Thank you very much. I'm a little hoarse
Yeah, he's
because,
hoarse, all right.
we're recovering from this January cold that we're going through. Everything. Frank, how the heck are you?
I'm good. You?
I'm Bo. That's Frank. We're good. We're
Happy New Year,
recovering.
everyone.
How is every? Listen, please. I know you're going to say my face is a little scarred up, but I just had to take something
Did you
off.
have a chemical peel?
Yes, pretty much. I had the facial and the chemical and just peeled a little
There
bit
you
too
go, you
much.
peeled it.
Yeah, I know. I had to put my ears back. So anyway, Frank, how the heck are you?
I'm good. You?
Very well, very well.
Good,
You know
good.
what? As always,
Yes.
I got to
Yeah.
tell you, I'm really excited about this show today.
Well, this is a very exciting show.
All
James and I were talking. James and I were talking before because Bo was late, so him and I were speaking for about a half hour out in the hallway. Very interesting stuff, but he will. But yes, it is a very exciting show.
Can I introduce him now?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you.
That's
With
what
your
I'm here for.
permission,
That's what I'm
without further ado, this is Mr. James Lane, the Senior Program Manager for Building Performance Labs of CUNY. And for those who don't know what CUNY means, it's the City University of
New York.
Nueva York.
Right.
I knew it.
Nueva York.
It is a wonderful institution. I think actually what he does is really important.
Oh, for sure.
And now, why
Yeah.
don't we just shut up and let James?
No, I
Thank
was
you,
just
Frank.
waiting because you are always talking.
James, hi, welcome, and please tell us what is Building Performance Labs.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Building Performance Lab was started in 2008, 2009 as New York City was getting ready to implement the Greater Greener Buildings Act, which was the first set of laws towards energy efficiency and carbon management. And wisely so, the city recognized that the first thing people are going to do is say, what about your buildings? And so they got that started. Michael Bobker was the founder and got things started to measure energy use and carbon dioxide emissions from city-owned buildings to be able to respond to that question, what about you and yours? And then so measuring, verifying that the improvements that are intended to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and energy use in buildings are actually working. So M&V is the engineering side of, that my colleagues still do for New York City buildings, city-owned buildings. Because we're associated with the university, we now teach other people what we know and learn about building operations for institutional buildings like city-owned buildings, and now we branch out into other kinds of institutions, hospitals, municipal buildings, and now residential buildings also for building operators, residential managers, property managers, and the service staff of the buildings.
This is actually fascinating because this is the one time, maybe not, I'm being a little facetious, but that New York City took it upon itself to say, hey, we're thinking about doing this law, but what about our buildings first and how they compare? So, Michael, you said started this whole thing and came up with all the formulas, how to do it, how to make a comparison and check the buildings. He basically started the whole thing.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
and that continues now.
It's still continuing.
Yes.
Oh, man. Because I was saying, do we like the results? How did the city-owned buildings do?
They're improving continuously. In fact, now we have even more staff from
Yeah.
my colleagues on
Right.
the engineering side of the business are embedded with city-owned city employees
Right.
who are managing energy use in the larger facilities, the larger
Huh.
buildings, offices, or other kinds of city facilities, transportation facilities, all sorts of things, schools. And in some of those cases, there are actually building performance lab employees embedded side by side with the agency employees.
And there's a big, and we're talking about also NYCHA as well? Or is that?
NYCHA is always a tough nut to crack, right?
Yeah.
So Building Performance Lab has some side consulting with NYCHA, but they have their own building management for energy efficiency and carbon dioxide reductions. They have their own program because it is a jointly managed system with both federal and city.
Yeah.
So
And a lot of your funding was from the city, or was it a private sector, or how did that become?
the great majority of Building Performance Lab funding is still through New York City. But we do have some private funding and also some fee-for-service training programs that we offer to property management companies
Right.
and the like.
Right. You were telling me before it was the seminars are through the city,
Correct.
right? Paid through that fund.
Mhm.
Mostly through Department of Buildings funding. There's a couple of other, one or two programs funded through other agencies, but yeah, the Sustainability Help Center offers a number of seminars for property managers and those who are involved in operations.
Wow.
There's also a fee-for-service course for design professionals. Architects and design engineers can take a retrofit now course specifically targeted for retrofit of buildings to comply with Local Law 97, which is the energy and carbon dioxide reductions.
And how long is that class for?
That's a 2-part seminar, 6 hours altogether. Two 3-hour seminars.
Interesting. I like that.
Frank, that's your lunch hour.
I know.
I mean, seriously, that's nothing for
My
Frank.
lunch hour.
Wow.
Again,
I
right.
don't-
We just
Listen,
started.
oh, come on.
Just
Come on.
Just
I
started.
love you.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, get out of here. But, James, tell a little bit about your background. Where is your background and how did you get into the BPL?
So I came to New York City in 1990.
Wait, let him guess where you're from. Does he have an accent?
No, I can't tell. I'm sorry. I don't know.
All right.
Midwest?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Exactly.
Close. Chicago?
Good. Almost,
No.
almost.
It's
Oh, we're going to play
little
20 questions.
further north.
Further north? Green Bay? Wisconsin? No, what's for Canada?
No, not that far north.
Oh, damn. I thought it could be a Rush fan.
you got really close to Green Bay.
Yeah,
I think
there
he
you
goes
go.
to Green.
Guess I got to say Green Bay.
Great.
Don't you know?
Don't you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. Love the cheese, man, but
So I graduated from Michigan Tech, which is
okay.
another 150 miles north of Green Bay, Upper Michigan. Then came here because I wanted to live in the city. I was dating an opera singer. This is where she needed to be. And I was teaching at that time about the ecology of natural systems. So landing in New York City, that meant also teaching people about how to restore degraded forests and rivers. So Inwood Hill Park and then the Bronx River and Hudson River were areas that I worked on teaching people about the ecology and restoration. In about 2007, I switched over and started teaching about buildings and the ecology of buildings, which are reserved for just one species, right? The reverse of teaching about natural ecosystems, where we go for biodiversity, more the merrier. With buildings, it's one species, except for those invited as pets.
I'll tell you, that's got to be a species that's hard to put up with sometimes. But we have to survive.
And we keep them comfortable, safe, and healthy in our buildings. That's the target in the building. That's what I had, reverse some of my usual thinking, but it's still about the habitat that we target for buildings and people who live in buildings. And so that's what I started off doing: environmental investigations for mold, indoor air quality, water investigations,
big things, very big things.
Further into it, getting into energy efficiency analysis.
So you've been on. So here's a very good question. I'm going to ask you, and I think it is.
Yeah, I'm waiting. Bated breath.
Thank you.
I'm holding my breath.
What is easier to restore, an ecosystem or that species building that we're talking about? Because nature is involved in one of them.
Right.
And nature, man,
a deer won't argue with
pissed
you.
Off. Exactly. When nature gets ticked off, you see what happens. They're called hurricanes, tornadoes, and God forbid wildfires, as we had in California.
The complexities are
they similar?
Severe in both cases.
Yes.
For retrofitting a sizable multifamily building, there are a number of complexities involved. Whether you're doing a fix because you've got a mold problem or slime in your water pipes, or you're wasting energy in a horrible way, whatever it may be, the fix can be really complicated. Same thing with natural habitats. The Hudson River is polluted for a lot of different reasons. So, number one, stop doing harm, and then start looking at how do we fix it. Just like in a building, what's the source of the contaminant or the problem? Where's the waste? Where's the source of problem? Fix that. Fix the water leak first, then go for the mold problem. Those are the same kind of thinking that we're looking at in natural habitats. Stop the degradation and then look at how do we make it better.
As a kid of the city, I remember in the 70s and 80s going up to the Twin Towers at that time. And the reason I bring this up is I remember how dark brown the water was, how really polluted. I could see, okay, as a kid, it's like, it's not supposed to be like a Hershey chocolate bar, you know? But recently, because I had some family come over and we had to do the whole tourist thing, I was up there again at One World Trade. And I have to tell you, it's still greenish brown, whatever it is, but it just looks, I'm sorry, a little bit healthier,
Right.
if I can say.
Yep.
It definitely is.
Oh, you can
better.
swim in it now.
Well,
Right.
and the Hudson is naturally a turbulent river, so you're going to
Yes,
see
yes,
Right.
green and brown.
Yeah. Right.
If you see more green and blue, that's probably a healthier river than if it's more brown. So
Right.
that, all of that will be there, and you can see a visual change in over
Oh,
time.
it is amazing. So
And we're starting to have oysters back. in
Really?
The Hudson Bay, Hudson
Right,
River
right, right.
around New York City, which used to be one of the most productive oyster areas in the world. I'll stop there, but they're coming back.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah, seriously.
I mean, is that more from like the Long Island Sound that they would get the oysters right in that
No, right
area?
here in the
Or
Hudson.
right here.
Yeah.
All along Manhattan. In fact,
Yeah.
they
Wow.
harvested so many oysters around New York City and Long Island. They shipped them to the Mississippi River boats when they had the gambling boats up and
Yes.
down Mississippi.
Yeah.
They ate Hudson River
Really?
oysters on the Mississippi River boats.
Wow. Look at that.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
I am shocked, but that is great to know.
Yeah.
They
Because-
put them in ice cars. by
Yeah,
train.
no, seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
that is fantastic that we're
Holy
able
cow.
to do that. That's very interesting.
We're getting there. We're
Well,
not
yeah,
quite able to
I
eat our
agree.
oysters yet,
Right.
but we're getting very close to the water being clean enough that we can then start eating our oysters again.
Right, but they are New York oysters.
Hmm.
So when you
they're-
stick them and open them,
You
you
stab
don't
your
say,
back.
"Hey, fuck you! Close the door!
What you
Close
doing?
the door! What are you doing?
How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?"
That's true.
Forget about the Brooklyn ones. All
Right. When you're trying to
All right.
shuck them, they shuck you back.
Shuck you back. So predominantly performance labs, you have to go in there and take these courses. Can you tell us something about the courses that are involved?
We start from the core of building science, looking at how heat, water, or heat, moisture, and air move in buildings, and we trace how energy and especially water, and then also other contaminants when we talk about air movement, and we look at how do we analyze those movements in buildings, starting from the core. For those who don't mind a little bit of geek out on the engineering principles, we look at the second law of thermodynamics.
Okay.
Things, heat moves to cold is the simplest way to say that.
Right.
So that's what we teach people, is the different ways that applies in buildings and building science, and continually looking back towards what are our key performance indicator, KPIs,
Mhm.
for occupant safety, health, and comfort. In that order, making sure that then we pay attention to energy efficiency, carbon dioxide reductions, and those things.
You got to recognize some of the KPIs and some of the
Right.
stuff that he's talking
I mean,
about.
what you were saying
Yeah.
too. Is New York City, New York State, or the country moving closer and closer to geothermal heating, or is that something that's still in the
Yes.
future?
Short answer, yes. We are moving in that direction. It has to be applied in specific applications, and there are a number of new construction buildings around New York City that have applied geothermal.
Yep, yep.
To
One in
get
Brooklyn
it
down in
to get it to
Greenwich,
the scale that's useful for
Mhm.
a sizable building in New York City is an engineering feat.
Really?
And to get the cores drilled at the angles that they need
Yes.
to be, with the
Yep.
clearances that they need to have,
And deep, right?
Within
Because those
there.
things are
it depends on the type of geothermal they're using, but typically pretty deep, especially in a New York City context. So the application is there. It's somewhat limited in already densely occupied cities.
right.
In more spread out suburban areas, it's a
Mm.
little bit easier to put in geothermal systems.
You know, I'm not a big fan of it, guys. I'm
Well,
sorry.
we don't know it yet. We don't know.
What are you kidding me? We polluted the atmosphere.
Well,
The ozone layer, you remember those
Yeah, of
from
course, yeah.
sixth grade and all that other stuff. It's still going on, and now we're going to be digging in there into the heat, into the magma.
yeah, but you don't go that. I mean, you don't go. I mean, you don't go that deep, dude. But
Yes, you do.
do you really go that deep? No.
A couple hundred feet.
Couple hundred feet. What's a couple
Magma's
hundred
deeper than
feet?
that.
Yeah, it's deeper than that. But what I'm thinking is New York City as opposed to Arizona. Would that be? And then you don't need the heat in Arizona, of course, but you're going to be more. You'll get more heat out of that.
Well, the
And
beauty of
would you be able to
geothermal,
transfer that?
what you're doing with geothermal, that's one of the tools used to electrify buildings. People heard the buzzword electrification of buildings.
Right.
That idea is circulates around, pun intended now, the heat pump cycle, the vapor compression cycle, using heat pumps and the refrigerants that run through a heat pump cycle. This is 120-year-old technology at this point.
Right.
It's being adapted in new ways to electrify our buildings and move heat around buildings in different ways. That's why I say we key on moving heat,
Right.
air and moisture around buildings. So you're moving heat in or out of the building. You can pump heat into the ground. You can pump heat out of the ground using a heat pump, using refrigerant to move the heat in one direction or the other. Same thing, they now have air source heat pumps where you can get heat even from cold air.
Yes.
We can extract heat from that cold air that's outside right now.
Wow.
It's an adaptation of existing technologies. As I say, these technologies have been around for 100 years. We're getting better at matching the refrigerant, the chemical that circulates inside of that vapor compression cycle, inside of the equipment. We're getting better at using the right chemical or right refrigerant for the loop that we need, for the amount of heat transfer needed. The geothermal, you're right. I mean, there are limited applications.
Right.
It's not for every building, but the same thing with air-to-air heat pump.
Yeah.
Not going to be for every building. And that's why you've got to have an engineering analysis, look at how the building uses and loses energy.
So, Frank, I would agree with you on this sense. I would jump all over the geothermal, what he said, all the way around.
Right.
Okay, simple fact. Have the politicians figured out a way to meter it and tax it and extract it?
Because it's based on electric use.
Yeah.
It's the utilities and politicians are now finding that means of metering how the electric energy is used to extract heat from the ground. Yeah.
I mean, I get
for a private owner,
right,
that you can do that on your own and reduce your energy bill. You're going to use less electricity if you're using a heat pump than the other kinds of ways that we heat buildings.
Right.
So in that sense, you're still getting ahead of it, whether they're metering you or not.
Right.
So would it make sense for a 6-family home, instead of having a boiler and using gas or oil to heat, just put in the heat pumps in the individual rooms? Is that?
Yeah, but you got to get the source. Was it?
Oh, it's electric. It's not a source. We're talking about the ones that you just put over the window. The new ones that are out there.
There's a saddle style,
right?
Air to air,
right. And does it make sense to get that, or all the or just keep retrofitting and putting in new boilers all the time?
I would say definitely we would not want to continue putting in new boilers. And right now, whether I agree or disagree with the regulation, New York City bans natural gas for powering new heating systems in new construction.
Yeah.
So they're stuck with electricity for now. Whether I agree with that law or not, that's what we've got.
Right.
And so they're going to use some sort of electrical heating system. Very likely, their options are narrowed. Can the saddle style work in a 6-unit multifam? It can, certainly, if designed properly and sized properly. That's part of the engineering puzzle that they have to solve. It can and has been done in a few retrofits. There are write-ups about that. Urban Green Council has a couple of write-ups about it. Building Energy Exchange has gotten some information out in published information. And so we're gaining knowledge and experience in electrifying existing buildings. For new construction, it is happening. And that's all, an easier lift for the design community to do that.
Right.
Retrofit, it's a little bit different.
Well, because we heard nations installing all these new heat pumps now that are all the saddle types and everything. And I'm like, that sounds, to have it, think about the complaints. One person's too hot, one person's too cold. Pump up the heat, lower the heat.
Right.
All the waste. Exactly. Who's opening windows? Everybody has an individual one.
Right.
They're using it. It's their electric. If you want to be cold, if you want to be hot, it's up to you.
But what does
not
that
to
do
me.
to our grid? Is that how much taxation is that on our grid? Right? Because now everything's electric.
It is. I think what I want people to think about when you look at the peak, the change in peak,
Right.
on how the grid
On
uses
demand,
energy,
yes.
how when everybody uses energy at the same time, does that put a strain on our grid? It will, it does. But think about how much we put a strain on the grid on a hot day in July at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
We're already putting a major strain on our grid on those days to cool our buildings
Yes.
in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be an additional or a different strain put on our buildings and the grid to heat in the wintertime. But the grid is used to it, in a way to personify the electric grid. And the utilities have strategies for peak shaving and for helping property managers to reduce their costs by being willing to shave their peak energy use in some way, so that they will continue to do that for peak wintertime uses, just as they have been doing for peak summertime uses. A companion question that I want people to consider is what happens to the customers in the shift. As we shift over from natural gas and more people are taking on electric. In New York City, BTU for BTU, electrical energy is expensive to heat a building, which puts a premium on the energy efficiency of the building and on getting that electrical charge under control with the utility and the regulators. Companion situation is that as fewer and fewer people are using that gas grid, they're still paying for the full infrastructure that delivers the gas. So you've got fewer and fewer customers. And what is Con Ed or National Grid going to do? As fewer and fewer customers are using that product, they still have that grid to maintain. They're going to have to somehow recover that cost. Very likely the cost is going to go up for the remaining customers using gas. And this is a puzzle that New York City regulators, Con Ed, and the whole community needs to solve. As we move people off the gas grid, how do we make for that price parity difference? They're going to be paying more per BTU for electric heat, and gas price is going to go up per unit because there's fewer people using it.
So it'll go up, not down.
That's cost of supply demand curve. That would be normal economics, as I understand.
And if you look at your bill, when it comes summertime, all of a sudden your demand, like what the hell? I'm not. Demand shoots up. And they're also charging you, of course, for infrastructure, never mind what you use, but to make sure the delivery charge gets there delivered. It's not going to get there all the way delivered, but most of it will.
It'll get there.
But they're still going to hack up the price. That is something, very, very smart to consider now. And I know a lot of people are out there, what the hell, we're going to electric? Why are we going to electric cars as opposed to gasoline? And how the hell are we supposed to, power up all these cars on electric? Where are we going to get all this electricity? There's a lot of conundrums. But that's not what we're here to solve.
Well, we're here to learn.
Exactly.
That's why he's here to teach us.
So, James, how does Building Performance Lab assist the property? Help the property, help the resident manager, the property manager, the general manager.
I know the answer because him and I were talking before you got here.
I was 5 minutes late. What the hell?
So we help people stay focused on the energy using parts of their building. They have a lot of different considerations. They come to us for a training or for a consultation. Then we're keeping them focused on how their building uses energy and what components and what assemblies of the building are using energy, what are the most likely points of waste in that energy use, and how do we then target reducing that waste.
Tell them what's the biggest waste.
One of the ones people don't necessarily think about
I know what the biggest waste is. The biggest electrical waste in New York City is when Frank plugs in the hairdryer.
Sorry. So
My back.
One of them that people often don't think about is overventilation. We've gotten a lot more attention to ventilation and need for fresh air for properly ventilated buildings with the COVID and other health concerns. We tend to overventilate with extra air, and we're paying an energy penalty for that by providing and moving more air through the building than necessary. That means that every cubic foot of air that is exhausted out as heated or conditioned air, then we're going to be taking in unconditioned air that now needs to be conditioned, heated in the winter or cooled in the summer or filtered or whatever else we do to condition that air. So we want to get that ventilation air at the right amount for the occupants so that they're safe, healthy, and comfortable, but then cut it off at some healthy margin over that 10%, 15%, whatever your design professional tells you. And do your setbacks, do your ways of, if you can do a setback at night because you've got a commercial or a mixed use building,
Absolutely.
and you can do a setback at night to reduce that over ventilation. Those are the things you want to do. Then the other things are, heating system, similar ideas. It's, how do you create the conditions for people to control their own space, like you were talking about. They have their heat pump in the window.
Right.
Another technology that's promising is an overlay on existing radiators that are in buildings, both hot water or steam. They can put a radiator blanket over that, and then there's a dial out that there's a little control built into this, now what we can think of as a high-tech blanket, and there's a little fan inside there, and the occupant of that apartment unit can control how much heat comes out of that particular radiator.
From that radiator.
I know a
radiator by
company that does
radiator. And it's relatively new technology.
Yes.
A Columbia University graduate student invented this about 10 years ago.
So he's taking he's like a fan and taking that heat and pushing with the fan.
Well, it's like, think about it like a big insulation wrap over the radiator, and then there's a small fan unit that blows out the amount of heat you want. The rest of it stays in there and then gets recirculated through the heat, through the steam or hot water pipes.
That's interesting. What we have that situation now where we just installed new vents, and mostly because we had to adapt to the new fire code that has the fire dampers on it. So it's a heated link that once that melts, it drops down so the smoke doesn't go. Right. But we're getting a lot of complaints that it's not pulling out. See, when we first started, we had the old-fashioned
like a mushroom fan.
Mushroom fan with the belt-driven motors, and they were always quiet. We always changed their belts. These are electric drive. These are really good, but we're still getting the same complaints. And I'm looking at my apartment, I'm like, you know what? It's really not pulling out that much. But when I was talking to the installers, New York City is 25 CFMs is the goal. If you're reaching 25 CFMs, that's fine. That's not a lot to take out the cooking odors, or that hot shower, that some people like to have.
Oh, I love my hot shower.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say
so we're getting a lot of complaints, and when all of a sudden I was starting to get mold complaints, I'm like, come on,
really?
Yeah, it happens. Now you're coming up with the flip side of that is if we open this up to 45 CFMs, our treated air conditioned or heated air is being blown right out.
I've done something like this both on energy efficiency and air quality investigations. Part of what you need to look at, you're talking about a vertical exhaust line.
Yes.
Right? So you got one per kitchen line, one per bathroom.
Right.
So two things I would look at off the top is, do you have balanced flow at the registers up and down your line?
We should.
Correct.
Yes.
So,
but there's that person who's going to stick a duct in there and blow out his thing. Or in Frank's case,
it's always Frank.
No, well, Frank, I'm sorry, but you really do need that vent right above your bed at night so that it takes out that noxious air. And,
you want
how is
my shocker moment now?
Yeah, no, not yet. But it's,
a shocker moment.
Yeah. Listen, in all fairness, New York City should definitely do something with his gas. So,
hard is it? I'll be a millionaire.
Should we raise the CFM? Should we not raise the CFMs?
I encourage people to look at the details of what the ASHRAE regulation is, because for bathrooms and kitchens, and now I'm a little bit mixed up myself. There's one is 25 CFM, the other is 50. I believe it's 25 CFM continuous or 100 intermittent. And
I'm not sure about that.
And the other one is 25-50.
Right.
And the intermittent is if it'll go on when needed, then you don't have to run it all the time.
Right.
Which is when when you don't need it, that's your waste factor, right? So the intermittent allows you to turn it on only when needed, but it needs more air when you're doing that.
Like a rocket.
Right. Now, in multifamily buildings, you're unlikely to be able to get that kind of control. So you want to look at, are you getting equal flow out those registers at the register level? You can test that with an anemometer. It's not a terribly expensive instrument.
Exactly.
That,
I'm sure there's an app for that.
Well, of course there
But
is.
anyway,
But you balance
is.
it.
But
Balance.
at this time, Frank, do you know
So-
what time it's for? We'll be right with you, James. What time is it for?
I don't know. Are you
It is time for the Building Talk Tidbit.
Oh,
Why do I raise my voice when
I
say
don't
that?
know.
I don't know.
You
either.
get excited.
I do get excited, Frank, because you actually have a tidbit.
I do have a tidbit. I studied. I do my homework every once in a while. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Local Law 152. He loves this stuff.
Back to his gas problem.
It's my gas problem.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Which I thought was very apropos to what our show is. Because since we are moving towards more and more towards the electric situation in New York City. But did you guys know that your system, your gas lines have to be inspected periodically?
Who knew?
Well,
Who
commencing, all right, now this goes back to January 1st of 2019, building gas piping systems other than gas piping systems of buildings classified in occupancy group R3 shall be periodically inspected according with this article, Article 318, right? Check this out. An inspection of a building's gas piping system shall be conducted at periodic intervals as set forth by rule of the commissioner. We all know that, right? But such inspection shall be conducted at least once every 5 years. Now, my question to you, RMs out there, and anybody else who's running a building, superintendents or handyman or whatever, when was the last time you had your building inspected and your lines? When was the last time you had your lines inspected?
2003.
See? 2003.
2023.
I thought you said 3.
Maybe I did. 2023. I wasn't here.
Okay. Well, so every 5 years, you got to get them inspected. Do you guys know that? Now you do. The initial inspection for a new building shall be conducted at the 10th year. So if you have a new building that was just built 2024, you don't have to worry about it for the next 10 years. And on the 10th year, you have to inspect your lines. But by then, New York City should have gone all electric. Maybe. Yeah, we're getting there. But anyway, so gas piping systems shall be inspected and tested in accordance with section 28-318-31, blah, blah, blah.
Frank, hold on a
Yes.
second. Hold on. You mean to tell me that 28-318-3-1
Right. 4.
through
Right.
28-318-3.4? Like, what the? Just give me a summary of what it says.
This
Once every 5 years, new buildings once every 10 years.
He asked for a tidbit. I'm giving her the tidbit.
Tidbit.
Right. All exposed gas lines from the point of entry of gas piping into a building, including building services meters, okay, up to individual tenant spaces shall be inspected for evidence of excessive atmospheric corrosion or piping deterioration that has resulted in a dangerous condition. Okay, illegal connections, non-code compliance. Remember that illegal connection that we had with that building that blew up?
Why do you
Because
think we
they
have
did-
this? Because I'm stupid.
Exactly. So, but it also, your common areas and your hallways and all that stuff should be inspected.
Laundry rooms.
Laundry rooms, all that, the inspection, right? So report and certification of inspections. It should be no later than 30 days after inspection. And who? A certified plumber. Someone who's a master plumber or some plumbing company should do your inspections, give you a report so that you can file it with New York City.
And that is the Building Talk Tidbit.
He asked for these tidbits, and then I give it to him. I give him a wealth of information. Don't rip it up. I got my notes. A wealth of information, and he doesn't want to hear it.
But James,
Check that out, guys.
as we were saying,
Tidbit brought to you by Bo.
thank you this time. What are the benefits for the resident manager of taking these classes?
Oh,
Besides a nice little, I love those
You
certificates.
get a
things.
certificate.
Yeah. Yeah. Frank has one tattooed every time he finishes one. He gets a new tattoo. Yeah, show him your butt. That was the last one he got.
Primary benefit is we're going to help them reduce complaints from their occupants and residents for environment-related issues, heat complaints especially. Right, we're going to help them maintain even heat in the building, comply with the regulations about what they're supposed to do for heat, and satisfy the complaints about moving air, showing people how do you evaluate for
Right.
drafts, fix the building for the drafts, for windows and doors.
Yes.
There's very simple measures that
Yeah.
you can do as part of operations and maintenance
Mhm.
to reduce those kinds of comfort complaints. And that's one of the key things that we're doing, because when you're doing that, then you're also going to find out that you are indeed reducing the energy use in the building alongside reducing your complaints. Getting it even throughout the building. That's what
That's the hardest thing I think we all struggle with. Those of us who don't have BMSs,
Right.
those of us who don't have, you have to go down a boiler room and see what
Yeah, an older building,
6 pounds, 4 pounds, 3 pounds.
Who's got
We
a
have
heat
to go
timer
to-
still working?
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that's the most difficult thing to figure out, because you go outside your building,
Yep.
you look up,
Yep.
you got 2 windows open here, but you got people shivering over here. That is
So looking at
our quagmire.
those imbalance questions,
Mhm.
making sure people understand in a steam heated building, are you doing a regular inspection of your air vents? And what's your program for air
Correct.
vent inspection? You don't do it just when somebody complains, right? If you're ahead of that curve, if you're in a 2-pipe steam trap building, what's your program for inspection of your steam traps? Those are the kinds of questions that we're encouraging people to look at and have a plan, have a regular system. And, for those kinds of classes, we offer people checklists, both, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, seasonal checklists that what are you doing when you do your building walkthrough? Even if, for experienced building operators, some of that they can just do mentally.
Right.
But for others, actually take the walk. If you've got less than 3 years experience, walk the building every day. Your roof, your boiler room, everything. So.
And do you guys, because we've had these companies on our show, now, do you guys work with like the Runwise, the Logical Buildings, and the Parodies of the industry, so that they can give you that guidance? And do they come to your facility and teach how to be more
we
proactive?
don't work directly with the consulting companies and contractors in the industry. We use some of their staff as our consultants when we're developing new curriculum.
Okay,
we hire subject matter experts, and they come from the industry. Various consultants and contractors in the industry come to us. We hire them as subject matter experts, both for curriculum development and as instructors for our classes.
Okay.
So the overheating or the underheating or just basically that heating issue is something that resident managers may read or anything where they can learn and come to you and say, okay, now I know what you're talking about, how that pertains to my building. So when I come back to my building, this is what I'm going to look for. Is that basically
It is. And another key thing that I would coach people on for residential buildings is for those that are subject to the local laws requiring energy audit and commissioning process above 50,000 square feet. And for benchmarking, it's even for 25,000 square feet or more. So look at your retro commissioning and your energy audit report as your how-to guide to make your building more energy efficient. Read the recommended measures in that section of your energy audit report. And same thing, think of your retro commissioning agent. You're paying them money to. So
I agree with you.
Work them for everything penny that it's worth while they're there at your building. When you get that report, ask them all the questions you have and really work that relationship with your retro commissioning agent to get the most out of it. And what more can you do? You don't have to wait 10 years. Like the law says, you got to do the commissioning cycle every 10 years. Nowadays, we're well suited to do this as a continuing process.
And that's exactly what you're looking at, what you're talking about, is you have a consultant. Most of your buildings do. Don't be afraid to pick up that phone and say, hey, Mr. Consultant, what are we doing wrong? We went up only 5 points over the last time from this time. We did X, Y, Z. What else do we need to do to raise it? Because I'm like Frank, the idea of paying a penalty to New York City makes me, explode. That's the idea. I hate doing that because I'm giving them money and they're gonna blow it away. That's what if there was some great use to it, okay, fine. Is the consultant? I mean, look, it's your consultant, right? He's the one who's supposed to know, he or she. So that's all I'm going to say.
I mean, here's another question that what you were saying about waste of energy. How does our elevators with the stack effect play into conservation?
Elevators are a tough piece of that puzzle to solve because the shaftway has to be open.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot really air seal the
Right.
opening of elevator shaft. And even in my own building, on a really cold, windy day, if somebody leaves the basement door open,
Sure.
you can't get that
Yeah,
door don't
yeah,
even close.
yeah,
And
yeah.
forget about the air rushing
Right.
up the shaft. You can't get it to
Right.
close. So it is a puzzle that people need to solve. And that what I just said is part of solving that, is making sure that the building is well sealed and you're not allowing those drafts of cold air come rushing in through the basement hallway and up that elevator shaft and make the whole elevator shaft cold and then spread from there.
Right.
So pay attention to those air entry and exit points.
Mm-hmm.
Air seal top and bottom of the building. For those of you who have not heard of stack effect,
boy.
come take our classes.
Oh boy,
We'll do building science.
you'll
Right.
see when you have
Air
to.
seal top and bottom of the building is your priority to get rid of those.
And a lot of people say, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but a lot of people say revolving doors help immensely in this process, right? Besides your, opening your doors and your
Revolving
sliding
door,
doors.
double doors, and
Double doors.
yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Like a vestibule portion of it, so
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's actually now required on
Right.
new construction and substantial renovation. They have to do a double door vestibule type thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's
And
for
you've
their
seen quite a few
benefits.
buildings now that have created either in or out. They've
Right.
created a vestibule area to get that benefit.
Right.
James, I'm kind of hesitant to ask this next question. And the reason is because of this next question, the building performance labs grew and became what it is today. Are we overregulated in New York City? Every freaking year, guys, ladies, what do we have?
Mm-hmm.
A new local
Local.
law, gentlemen, a new this, a new that,
Mm-hmm.
which now I think the timing has shortened to a point where we're scrambling, trying not to get fined, trying to do the right thing. But come on.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of energy related regulations that have come out in the last 15 years.
Yes.
Greater Greener Buildings Act, 2008, 2009,
Mhm.
Climate Mobilization Act, 2019, piled on.
Right.
Frank was just talking about the gas laws that
Yeah.
came on in 2015, 2016, and energy related laws that complicated the situation further. So I agree. There are some complicated regulations around energy and energy use in New York City buildings added to the rest of the complication.
Right.
Fire protection code and all these other things that are also related to these questions. I think my response to that is in part, what are the regulations doing for us? Are they making us safer in some way? Are they, whether it's at the immediate level, gas safety laws,
Yes.
Reducing pollution from burning fossil fuels makes the immediate area around where that fossil fuel, especially if it's oil, it pollutes air. People have to breathe that air. I live in the Bronx. The Bronx is world famous for its level of asthma rates. So those are things that it improves people's safety and health to reduce our fossil fuel use at the local level. We also know that fossil fuels contribute to climate change. Is New York City solely responsible for that? Absolutely not.
Right.
Is our New York City building owners have some part to play? Certainly. And I guess overregulated in the near term, it looks that way, yes. However, we've known that these things were coming out. We as a society,
Yes.
as a culture, have known that these things have been coming on for 30 or 40 years. We're late. In my way of looking at this, I told you I teach about habitat restoration and for natural areas. We're late looking at this climate change problem from when we knew it existed.
Right.
So are we overregulated? If you're looking at it from a near-term point of view, probably yes. If you look at it from a longer-term point of view, we're just late getting there, and we've ramped up very quickly.
Right.
We didn't have to do it that way, but now we do.
Right, because you had to force people to get on board.
We really are getting close to a crisis level of
interesting.
weather events.
Right.
I think there is benefits. However, when you say, does the city benefit? I like to think that New Yorkers would benefit, but because of the bureaucracy, because of the damn waste and everything that goes with having a big city, I and probably a lot of other people can be skeptical. Fine. I think we have to be shown in clear numbers and clear facts and nice little charts, like up and down. Hey, our pollution rates went down because of this, this, and this. I think we really have to enforce that and force that out to the public. Some of these laws, yes, but give us some time to get it done. I know we've been thinking about it for 30, 40 years, and the process goes through all sorts of political BS by the time it becomes a law. We can talk about it until you're blue in the face.
Right.
But New York has always been a reactive city. There's very few laws that they're proactive about, that New York is leading the way.
Yeah.
No, we're being dragged because of the litigation or penalties. Seriously, the only way New York City was going to enforce all of these new laws was to put in a penalty phase. That if you don't comply, it's going to cost you money. Never mind the money. So I have to tell my board, I have to tell, listen, we have to do this so we don't get a fine, a penalty to do this. So we have to spend this money no matter what. But if we don't spend this money, we're going to spend this money in penalties.
Agreed. And I think there's two things that we teach people about how to look at that new landscape. That you now have two budgets to balance in looking at your energy use in a building.
Right.
All of your energy use is going to also cost you some amount of carbon dioxide emission.
Yes.
And the building, if it's above 25,000 square feet, has a maximum carbon dioxide that you're allowed to emit. So that's your carbon budget. You got to stay at or under that carbon budget. Same time, you're trying to balance how much energy you use, whether you're burning natural gas, oil, or now using electricity for your heating. Especially, that's going to be your biggest cost is electricity in New York City, or is heating in a New York City building. Right. So you're looking at both your energy costs, and that's what I said before. Per BTU, electric energy costs more than natural gas by therm or however you're buying, right? By therm or 100 cubic feet. So that's the two budgets that the property manager needs to look at. Is your carbon budget, how much carbon dioxide am I allowed to emit, and my energy budget, how much does the energy cost? And the different kinds of fuel emit different amounts of carbon dioxide per BTU. And that's where electric emits the least, oil the most, and natural gas is in the middle between the two. And that's what they've got to balance is their money cost, carbon dioxide cost, and two budgets that they're looking at. There's a really good tool for this, published and sponsored by Building Energy Exchange, BEEX.org. Has a really good, very useful tool for people tied to the New York City required buildings list.
Right.
Buildings required to comply with these laws are also listed on the Building Energy Exchange website, and you can go in there, put in the property address or building BIN identification number, and look up that property and what its carbon budget is and how it's reporting its energy use. Starting this year, it'll be actual energy use reported.
BEEX.org. Can't they come up with a better acronym than that?
But anyway, now, but he because while he was saying that, wouldn't New York City or New York State be the biggest waste of energy? Because let's say, how do we produce electricity? We use some other fossil fuel. No, don't we use oil or don't we use gas to generate electricity?
Well, we also use water. We can bring
the greatest source now is natural gas and then oil and then renewables.
Right. So we have to use gas, which then becomes this carbon emission to produce electricity,
which is cleaner.
But we still have another emission.
Yes.
But electricity is cleaner.
So
he will explain it.
The way we discuss that in the industry is you're talking about site versus source use of the fossil fuel.
Okay. I told you that.
So on-site is every building has their own natural gas boiler, or oil, but we'll stick with natural gas for now. And all those little boilers collectively, to keep those buildings warm, emit more natural gas than if we burn the natural gas at a central facility, one place, get a more efficient burn to create electricity, and then send the electricity out on wires to the buildings, and they use the electricity to heat their building. you get less carbon dioxide emission per BTU of useful energy at the site. So the way that's calculated, there's source, where the natural gas is burned at the electric plant. That's the source energy and the source contribution to natural gas, to carbon dioxide emission, versus the site contribution to carbon dioxide emissions.
Got it.
So we gain efficiency.
People want to know
by doing it at a
told
central
you this
plant.
already. Right. I tried to teach
Should I geek out and tell you how in Local Law 97, the way they calculate the energy use per fuel type, they're able to then put a smaller coefficient on the electrical energy, which rewards the user for using electrical energy. There's a bigger coefficient on the natural gas. It penalizes them for using natural gas as their fuel. And that's how they tweak it towards moving people towards electrical energy. They don't require you to electrify your building, but they tweak those coefficients to push you in that way.
Hey, James, I have a building. It's not luxury, but our score D38. I walk down a block, luxury building, huge condos, everything beautiful. D31. Like, how is this possible? All their new equipment, everything on it. But because it's a luxury building, wealthier people, I don't think they would care about their electric bill.
Good combination of things is, are they using the fancy equipment that the building is equipped with? If it's a fancy luxury building, it's got central cooling in the building. They probably have a building management system.
Yes.
How often do the operators put things on manual and run things the old-fashioned way because either the automated equipment is out of tune and they're not quite sure how to do it, how to retune it? They're not properly coached and trained on that. Whatever it is, they're out of cycle with their automated system is one possibility. The other is, yes, in some luxury buildings, you're going to get the occupants saying, I don't care how much it costs, we'll pay whatever penalty it comes with, and that cost of business to those kinds of buildings. In some cases, I don't say we're all doing it.
No, not all of them, because New York City, we have, it's a liberal society. We love trees. We got a lot of tree huggers out there, and natural people. I love trees too.
But and just like what he was saying, where the two aspects of it, we don't care, we're millionaires, we will pay whatever it is, or the resident manager, superintendent, who doesn't have that knowledge, should then take advantage of going to a BPL class to learn.
Boy, Frank.
And in some cases, I mean, there are situations where the building systems are simply old, and the cost to get them to a more efficient compliance is just
absolutely
off the charts. So there are cases where the building is in some way locked into their inefficient systems.
The apartments have their own. Everybody has their own little thing going on. Don't mess with me. I don't want to do the whole thing and do a retro, get everybody on the same thing. Yes, exactly. Frank, I think this one is right up your alley.
What? Oh, what are the future regulations?
But before you mentioned something, the types of it. You said there was the natural gas, the solar, wind, everything, and just below methane gas is Frank gas.
Oh boy, he always brings my gas up. I don't know.
No, right underneath the methane gas. So I don't think we should kill the
Frank
cows, but we should do something about Frank's gas.
So wow. In that case, it matters whether it comes before or after combustion. Right?
Yeah, right.
The methane,
I'm surprised he's still here.
The methane content before combustion is more potent as a natural greenhouse gas.
Oh, he's so potent. Anyway, we digress as we do. But do you know what it is? You know what it's time for?
Well, we just did the tidbit, so I'm gonna guess there's a new thing that Bo has invented.
Yes.
So we're gonna.
It is. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Building Talks FUF.
What does FUF stand for?
It doesn't stand for what you think it does.
I mean
FUF.
Right.
No.
What is it?
Fix yourself first.
Fix yourself
first. FIRST.
Right, but
Okay.
wait a minute. You said FUF and fix yourself. There's a Y there somewhere which is missing. And
How do you pronounce it?
fix yourself.
YOU. How do you
first.
pronounce it?
Huh? You. Hey,
There you go. So, fix
Wow.
yourself first is something that I came up with and I want to try. And basically, I think after this, I'm trying to avoid. I'm like zone out on him. But after this COVID thing, and a lot of things have stomach coming on 2 years. But there's been a lot of awareness for mental health,
right?
And I think a lot of that is an awareness that should have been a lot earlier on then. But for whatever the reason, whatever the case is, I'm proposing or I'm saying, if you really want to manage other people,
right?
And that's our industry, is that we manage other people. And if we want to interact with other people and get the response from them and get the quality and efficiency from their work, it has to come from us first. And by no means are we anywhere near perfect. I'm always trying to improve, whether it's on this here with thing, and not really to do anything. What I'm really trying to say, this is the first time that we're going to put out this segment. We're going to have little bits and pieces of some advice, some little fatherly advice, some other advice, some professional advice, but just really be aware of how you are treating others. And I think that's something that I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to work on not just others in employees,
right,
but
people in general.
People in general,
right?
Your spouse, your children, your, the people around you that you see every day. So I think what I'm trying to get at is an FUF is
fix yourself first.
Fix the self first. And if you have any issues, it's okay to say, hey, I have some issues. Well, I think
I'd like to add to that because, and a lot of us guys, us resident managers, we, we'll do a Friday morning coffee clutch.
Yes.
Where we can discuss our issues. Maybe a Thursday morning, whatever the thing is. I've said this before too, and I do this, pretty religiously, where I'll take in the morning and I sit for 20 minutes and I meditate, and that really helps me get these issues out of my head, think through what I'm going to get through, concentrate on let me be better today than I was yesterday.
And this is what I'm talking about, because normally I would have a wisecrack about that. I would say something, but you know what? He's right. And that's another FUF moment.
There you go. And we'll expand on that.
Brought to you by Frank's Gas.
Thank you.
So, James, I'm sorry it took so long for that, but we're trying to put in all these segments, and we're trying to help reach and help the resident manager out there.
Yeah.
I think Frank wants you as
that one, all
right. Big question.
So,
man.
James, what are the future regulations, the codes, local laws we should have on our radar?
So the big one that a lot of people know about and are talking about, Local Law 97.
Of course.
And what I want to highlight for people about that, the carbon emissions law, people know of it. It caps the amount of carbon dioxide a building is allowed to emit, starting at 2024 numbers, reported in 2025. If you go over your number, you will pay a penalty. What I want to highlight about that is that it will become more strict every 5 years until 2050.
Really?
So this is not a one-time measure it and comply. This is every 5 years you are going to have a lower cap on your carbon dioxide emissions allowance, the way the law is written now. I know there's a lot of lobbying going on to change this, but your numbers, if you're good for the period from now until 2030,
right,
your carbon emissions number is going to be lower from 2030 to 2035.
Wow.
So I've heard it once. For those who are hearing from consultants, if you're hearing from your engineering, mechanical consultants that you're good for Local Law 97, quiz them
Right.
about whether you're going to be good for 2030 to 2035.
Wow, because
Because
you're
it gets
getting
more strict.
right. So you're not getting rewarded to reach that goal. You're getting penalized again. You've hit
Well,
In a way, there is now,
Right.
like I said,
incentivized.
all right.
and,
Okay.
and there's ongoing lobbying. There is also now an incentive for early electrification. If you
Right.
take beneficial electrification
Mhm.
before your due date, you get a special incentive for that.
Okay.
And you avoid. And the other thing to think about is it's costs, but it's also avoided extra cost if you're lowering your energy bill. At the same time, you're avoiding the cost of the carbon penalty. That's a compounding avoided cost
Mhm.
that's a little bit different than paying the penalty. You see, if you understand that nuanced difference of avoided cost versus penalty paid.
Right. Okay. I get it.
One other little thing that I want to touch on your comment about the new gas laws is that this year the Department of Buildings will begin to enforce the gas leak detector
Right.
requirement.
Yes.
So
We did a
for
show on
every room where there is a
Yep.
gas burning appliance, there's a requirement for gas leak detectors.
Mhm.
And there was a delay in enforcing that law because of industry acceptance testing.
Okay.
The type of
Mhm.
gas
Yeah,
leak
what
detector
the-
had to
right.
be cleared
Yep.
by United Laboratories.
Yep.
And so that is now
Mhm.
being enforced. Department of Buildings will be enforcing the gas leak detectors starting in May of this year. They'll
Of
be
this
doing-
year, 2025.
including those in their inspections, along with the periodic inspection rule.
Right. Which.
Ah.
So, and this is me playing devil's advocate. Maybe I think I'm coming in and I'm gonna check. Oh, all right, you got your gas detectors up there in the ceiling. You're in the kitchen, blah blah. Oh, wait a minute. When was the last time you checked your gas pipes? Is that would that go hand in hand?
In the meter room, in the point of entry room,
Yes.
if the meter and the point of entry room are different, both of those, and then any room with a gas burning appliance,
Laundry.
yes.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you have to have gas detectors in the interim
Right.
areas.
But once I'm coming in, right, let's say, because New York City's going to come and do an inspection once this law starts hitting. They got to come in and inspect and make sure you're compliant. But doesn't that in the back of their head go, hey, wait a minute, there's local law 152 too that we can always
No, but
tack
you're
onto this.
you're already saying that you're complying with this law because I installed these detectors, and you're gonna have to
No, but
sign
you're
off
complying
on it.
with the gas detector law,
Right.
but not this law.
But they're not gonna come into every single
Oh,
apartment
no.
and check.
Of
They're
course
gonna
not.
come in. If they're gonna come in, they're gonna check. This law is on its own. It's a standalone. DOB will come in and
Okay.
check your
Right, because
gas rooms
Okay.
because that's
that
what they've
inspection
done.
will be your plumber,
Yes.
and the plumber will file the report with DOB.
Self-certification.
Whether
Okay.
I don't know if they're going to allow plumber to certify the detector installation. They might. I don't know. That
So who would do that? then? That
I
would be
never
the-
knew that they would. Now
I mean-
you have to. If you're gonna buy a new stove, you got to get a plumber to take it
Yes.
out and install it.
Yes.
I never knew that was going to happen.
Yes,
but
yes.
you're right. You
Mhm.
never know.
Yeah.
Absurd.
there's a little wrinkle on that law. If a person were to take a 16-hour training,
Yes.
and there are designated training providers, 16 hours you can get limited gas work
Huh. I didn't know that.
cert from Department of Buildings. So, for example, what
Okay.
is called handy person at a building can do that
Can do that.
and be able to install a stove.
Frank.
What?
You
What?
limited gas? No.
One
Anyway.
more quick wrinkle.
Oh,
I don't know if you
please.
want to include this. In the New York State legislature, there have been a law introduced, a bill introduced every term. It has not yet passed to require gas leak detectors, smart gas leak detectors.
Oh yeah.
Which will not only alarm,
Yes.
it will also send a message to
yes,
somebody
yes.
via text message or
Yes.
email.
We had
So-
that on a previous show.
We did, and that is
Yes.
one thing
Mhm.
that I would tell you in a building my size where I smell gas
Mhm.
every freaking day.
Mhm.
And whether it's not, we still have some stoves with the old gas pilot.
Oh,
you know.
boy.
No, seriously.
Wow.
Listen, that is a beautiful thing. And I will tell you this very briefly. Think about the scenario.
Sure.
Fire department comes in. Now everybody in New York City has gas detectors. Where do you think these fire department people are going to go first? There's going to be false alarms all
Of
over the
course.
place.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to come into your building and start looking for the gas leak?
No.
No. Show me the main. There's the main. Shut it down.
Well,
Now,
no, but
you
the
go
detect-
prove that. No. They will. Who's going to have time?
No, but the detector is going to say apartment 3B.
If you have that right now, all you're putting in is a detector. It's going to go beep, a beep, a beep, and hope that somebody hears it. The person may not be home. The person might have left the stove on and walked out.
But
Listen.
but that's supposed to be going over to like a BMS system.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Why
Not
would you
necessarily.
spend $200
Right.
for something like that as opposed to $50 for that? And you're a
That's-
landlord, and you have.
That's
you know,
why there's a difference
1,000
between the city.
right.
The city requires a detector. The state law would require a smart detector.
Yes. And
That's-
I'm
that's
telling
the
you right
difference.
now,
Okay.
I like
Property
it
owners
because-
should pay attention to the difference because
Okay.
if you install the not smart detector,
Right.
and then later on the state tells you, oh, now you got to go back and install the smart
Yep.
detector, you're spending
We're
money
spending
twice.
money. Right.
But you're also going to be saving money because there's no way the fire department can shut you off. Why? That smart detector goes off. I get an email. The front desk gets an email, a text, whatever it is.
Right. And it's
The
telling
property
you,
manager
right.
gets a text. The owner gets a text.
Exactly.
Everybody and his mother is going to get a text, and we're going to know exactly what apartment,
Right.
where it is.
Right.
So when the fire department comes up and
Yep.
says, "Where's the?" Oh no, it's right here. Come here. You can take a look at it. But we took care of it.
We took care of it. Correct.
And please leave. Don't shut off our gas.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, you get red tag, you're done.
you're done.
You're done.
We all know
We all know.
you're
I
done.
think we've all lived through a red
Yes.
tag, I think.
All right. Now we come to the most
I
important.
know that's a very but
This
he
is-
lives for this.
Listen,
He
because
lives
it is CUNY, it's the City University of New York. I'm thinking, wow, James,
for this. Here we go.
seriously,
Here we go.
you've met us, you've talked to us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I know you know, because he knows.
He knows. I know he knows.
If Frank or Bo went to CUNY BPL, who would get an A?
I would give both of you an A.
Wow. Safe.
I think they're learning, Frank.
Safe.
I think they're learning.
Highly accomplished students.
Give me $20.
Yeah.
You know what? And we're going to turn this around on you a little bit, James, because now we want to know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Go ahead.
It's time for
If we were in your class, believe it or not, would we be the guys who would go, shut the fuck up?
What do you mean?
Like, because he'll come up and then we'll ask these questions
Yeah.
and then we'll come up with these answers and we'll come up with these questions.
Oh, you're talking about that? Yeah, that's
would,
you.
Would we drive you crazy
That's
in
him.
a class?
He would.
No.
Oh no, he would. No, seriously, he would drive you crazy. No.
The talkative people who want to
Right.
display their knowledge, you become my co-teacher.
That's right. I could be
Okay.
the co-teacher. Just put
He
that
said-
cap
no,
on
he
me
put
right
that-
now.
He was looking at me.
Just put that cap
He-
on me right now.
He was looking at
You get
me.
the pointy hat
Right.
and stand in the corner.
He was looking
I know.
at me.
I've been there many a time.
I just wanted to know.
James, what is it that do you what do you want to say about BPL? What do you really want to tell our audience, especially the resident managers out there? This is your livelihood. This is what you do, what you love to do. I can tell, just by talking to you and just by hearing the passion this man has for
100%.
that.
100%.
And he could put up talking with him for half an hour. He's a saint. What is it what you like to tell our audience?
What I want for your audience to know
Yeah.
is that we have some of the answers they need to solve their building puzzle on making the building more energy efficient, keeping their building occupants safe, healthy, comfortable. And we know that there's a lot of complications out there in running a
Sure.
building. We want to give people assurance and some comfort for their own. You were saying about nowadays we need some mental health comfort.
Oh yeah.
That's part of what we are providing to people.
Yeah.
Is there are tools and there are procedures that people can follow to reduce their energy use, reduce their carbon dioxide emissions, and we can work with them to make
Right.
those things happen.
Yeah.
Give them some comfort around how that little bit of complicated part of running a building, we can help to simplify those parts.
So the first step should be take a seminar and then see what class would be appropriate for them to take after that.
Tell you what is the website?
bpltraining.org.
bpltraining.org. You will see the classes that are listed on there. You will see everything that you need to know. And of course, the questions.
CUNY BPL training.
See, don't forget the CUNY
CUNY BPL training.org.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Very important. We were on the website. I was on the website again. I've been on it, and it's tons of stuff. I'm like, holy cow! Very, very, very interesting.
It's very, but the good thing is that there's a lot of wealth information that you really do need.
Yes,
and just look at it.
Right, and it's not only for the resident manager because it's property management. Owners of buildings too can also participate. They can go into a class, whatever they want to do, and learn, so that it helps them along.
And I understand your listeners are mostly residential managers. We also offer training for
commercial,
municipal, and other buildings like that.
So. A commercial building is going to be easier.
No, he said the class was longer. No, there was more.
No. In terms of getting a better score, simply because technically they're not really 24/7, But nowadays with the stay-at-home, work from home, guess what? They're our problem. Instead of going out there and get their asses in an office for 9 to 5, and we only see them after that, they're our problem 24/7 now.
Coming into local law 97 reporting periods, commercial buildings have a slight advantage because their energy use is already more tilted towards electrical energy.
Electric chillers,
especially where you've got cooling systems. Right. Those are large users. Any kind, even small data center, data churning for computers and that sort of thing is a large energy user. So commercial buildings were already more electrified as a percentage of energy use than residential buildings. They have a higher percentage of fossil fuels.
Right.
Once we get into the later reporting periods, that advantage will start to go away because residential buildings will be making those conversions to electrical energy use. They'll be reducing their, increasing energy efficiency. So the advantage that commercial buildings had coming into these reporting periods is going to disappear in the second 5-year period. And certainly by 2035, commercial buildings are going to have to do just as much as residential managers to keep up with the increasing requirements.
Well, as a veteran of both commercial and residential.
Yep.
What the hell am I doing in residential?
Well,
I love it.
And I think, and just like you, making your notes, I think that, and I was thinking the same thing. We're going to make this a part 1 series. And if you'd love to come back on, and we'll do a part 2 series of this, because I find that it's.
No, that's not what I meant.
So important.
It is so important.
I think that we should do.
And James actually delivered a really compelling case here with some of the stuff that's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Really. So, James, we want to thank you for being here.
Well, you got to give him a WTF moment.
Oh, my God. Did we forget that?
Yeah,
because you told me not to do it.
No, because that was a question. But he's getting
lady, how can I forget my audience? My God.
And he's got a good one, he said.
It's because of the sickness I had.
You're sick, all right.
And this massive surgery I had on my chin over here. Anyway, it's time for the WTF moment.
Ta-da.
Now, the WTF moment, the what the
Frank
moment, is any situation, incident, or moment that makes you say, what the
Frank?
Did this really happen?
Yep.
So I was at a building to conduct an energy audit. And I mentioned before, part of making sure that the building is using energy efficiently is to not over-ventilate. We want to provide enough ventilation to keep building occupants safe, healthy, and comfort, but not over-ventilate. So we do an analysis of how much air is moving through each of the registers in the kitchens and bathrooms.
Okay.
So I'm there. It's a 25-unit building, something like that. And what I like to do is in what usual ASHRAE requirement is you test one line, 1 out of 7 units is a typical number of units tested. We go into the unit, I'm accompanied by building staff, and he says we have to, test the stove for emissions, and we're going to, put this, I had an anemometer with me. I was going to measure airflow in the bathroom register, the duct. We opened the door to this second bathroom. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit. and they were using the second bathroom as a storage and cat. It was the cat's litter room and a storage room. They were not using it as a toilet bathroom. I looked up at the register, and there was a solid half-inch of cat hair.
Oh,
You could make felt out of the amount of cat hair that I saw on that register.
on that register.
So I said, "What?" And I looked at the building
Right.
staff who was accompanying me, and his eyes just same thing as his eyes just popped out of his head, like they did not know that was there. He was embarrassed
Wow.
that it was there, and me seeing it.
Right.
Yeah, and the people aren't embarrassed at all. Like, oh, really?
Yeah.
They didn't know that.
Read.
Oh my God.
So, but what was the apartment? Did it smell like cat, or were you already going? All right, I see cats. I know it's going to smell a little bit.
It wasn't
Right.
It
horrible.
will.
I mean, they must have at least
Right.
cleaned the litter box.
Right.
Because I mean, once they opened the door, there's a little bit of odor, but it wasn't horrible.
It wasn't horrible.
Yeah.
But, and I'm sure. I mean, there was a thick layer of cat hair covering over that register. There was no air moving through there. Not anymore.
Not anymore. Wow.
So
Could that be said about your butt too?
It could be.
Okay.
There is a film.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. On that note, we have to stop right here, James. He's killing me today. Okay, on that note, we want to thank James Lane. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
He's a senior program manager at the City University of New York Building Performance Labs.
Mm-hmm.
Man, thank you.
Very,
Thank
very,
you.
very, very, very informative.
Frank,
Very informative.
take
My
us
pleasure.
home, man.
Absolutely. So remember, guys, you check us out. Check out our website, Building Talk NYC. It's right there. I won't forget it because it's in print, so I won't forget it.
Thank
You can
you.
also check us out. We're back on YouTube.
Yes.
We're about to produce some more stuff on YouTube, Spotify. Go on. There's tons of shows on Spotify that if you're jonesing
Yes.
for something that you missed way back when, please go on there and check that
Hey,
out.
I know you guys do the same thing. Like, oh man, your show's too long. Hey, just going to New York. You're gonna get stuck in traffic, right?
Absolutely, and then put it.
Crank up the
Crank it up.
tunes.
Absolutely.
Spotify, and what was the other one?
And then you just, wherever you get your podcast. So we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on, what's that other one? iHeartRadio. We're all over the place. Wherever you get your podcast, we're on there.
Yeah.
Check us out. Tell your friends, subscribe, hit like, spread the word.
And just remember, Building Talk. It's always good listening.
Later.